Do you trust politicians? Well, if you do, then the USA is not in a recession. But if you, as I, believe that they are professional liars and that, like everything else, they're lying to you again about the recession, then yeah, it would seem probably the case that the USA is in a recession. So in today's video, I want to discuss what a recession is, how a recession is calculated, how long a recession typically lasts, how recessions affect the markets, as well as how to prepare for and profit from a recession. Basically just a value-packed video, so make sure to watch the whole way through to get all the goods. My name's Lark. I make videos on investing. If you do like that topic, then please subscribe to the channel. And if you do think that they are indeed lying to you about the USA not being in a recession, then smash on that thumbs up button to let us all know it. Okay, so let's get into this topic. And first, let's start off very broad. What is a recession? Well, a recession is most commonly defined as being 2 consecutive quarters of negative economic growth in a row. That's, of course, as defined by the Bureau of Economic Analysis. And thus, using that definition, the USA is currently in a recession, technically, with Q1 GDP contracting by 1.6% and Q2 GDP down by 0.9%. Although, as this chart shows you, the contraction is much less dramatic than the big crash of 2020 when things got real crazy real fast. But this 2-quarter definition is very common. In fact, it's used by most countries around the world. But the USA, as always, likes to be a little bit different. One definition is not enough, certainly not one that's easy enough to manipulate. No. The USA has decided that this is not the recession you're looking for. Because since 2009, the official way of defining a recession in the United States has not been defined by the 2 quarters of reduced economic growth, but instead it's being led by the National Bureau of Economic Research, NBER. Basically a bunch of unelected top economists calling the shots. They define a recession in a pretty broad sense, stating that a recession is a significant decline in economic activity that lasts for more than a few months. Pretty vague. Now this is done by looking at a whole variety of different indicators before actually coming out and declaring a recession. That's including looking at things like employment, personal income, manufacturing, industrial production, wholesale and retail sales, and of course, housing permits. So right now, the US government and the Federal Reserve are claiming that there is currently no recession in the United States due to, in particular, the labor market, the jobs market, being too damn strong. So they're not having a recession in spite of the traditional definition of a recession. It's pretty convenient, obviously, because the US also does have midterm elections coming up in November. You wouldn't want to have a recession for midterms, would you? No, go figure that now there's not a recession. But if you look at job growth relative to the size of the labor force in the US right now, it's actually the same, 0.25%, as it was back in the 1970s, prior to the big recessions that occurred back then. You see, the problem is that the unemployment data is actually a lagging indicator, which could give off the impression that the economy is actually doing a lot better than what it actually is right now. So, while the NBER may not agree with the assessment, if you look from a traditional perspective, then yes, the US is technically in a recession. That being the case, then, how long does a recession last? How does it affect the wider world? Well, the average length of a recession is actually around 11 months. But of course, that's just an average, and obviously not all recessions are the same. They're all vastly different. Some can last for years, others just a couple of months. Let's take a look at 2 of, well, the most recent and substantial examples. The Great Recession, the one that came before the 2008 financial crisis, actually lasted for 18 months. That was the longest recession that the USA has had since the Great Depression, way back 100 years ago. On the flip side, the COVID-19 recession was the shortest on record and only lasted 2 gosh darn months. Wildly different. So recessions affect a country in 2 major ways. The first, of course, is a decline in growth to an economy measured by the GDP. And the second is basically a significant increase in unemployment. And when this happens, well, there's all kinds of knock-on effects that go right down the economy. Consumer and business sentiment ends up turning negative. That, and of course, leads to people stopping spending money in the damn economy. They either don't have it or they're too scared to spend it, which means that businesses then aren't growing, they're not hiring, no new jobs to fill all that unemployment. Basically, the economy grinds to a halt, and when that happens, what do governments do? Well, what they have been doing, what they're probably going to do again, the government, central bank, they step in and basically do things in the only way they know how, inflate their way out of it. This will probably include cutting interest rates when things get bad in a bid to encourage borrowing to get the economy kick-started again, and potentially even providing the economy with large stimulus packages through quantitative easing policies. This is what they did back in 2008. It's what they did in 2020. Helicopter money seems to usually be the answer. The last 2 recessions in the USA both saw huge stimulus packages to try to restore the economy. And yeah, it did pump things up, but we start making this boom-bust cycle. Increases the debt burden, that leads to asset and commodity prices, really just around the world increasing. And of course, these actions just exacerbate the underlying problems of the economy by making the boom-bust cycles actually shorter and sharper. Now, more public and private debt ends up meaning that inflation will become even more persistent over time and throughout the world, not just in the USA. Central banks will have to, of course, try to combat this by raising interest rates in a bid to bring that inflation coming back down. Regular people, businesses, of course, even countries are all going to struggle in the end to keep up with their debt burdens because of the increased interest rate charges. Remember, almost everything's on adjustable rates, not fixed rates. Adjustable rates, those mortgage rates go up when the interest rates go up. That leads to civil unrest, and of course, all roads end up leading to Bitcoin in the end, because of course it does, don't they? Of course they do. Now, before I get into how a recession affects, well, you, and even how you can actually profit from a recession, let me just snag a quick moment of your time to let you know about Wealth Mastery. This is my weekly cryptocurrency investor report coming twice to your inbox every single week. We talk about altcoin reviews, we've got NFTs, we talk about decentralized finance with step-by-step tutorials, the latest, hottest airdrops, technical analysis, and much, much more. You can actually sign up for free using the link down below in the description. So go ahead and check it out. Our members love it, and I'm sure you will too. Now let's talk about how does a recession affect you? Well, of course, as businesses struggle, guess what? They're likely to reduce their workforce. So you could find yourself at higher risk of losing your job and, of course, your income. Then, as unemployment rates rise, it can become a very big challenge to find a new job, especially if a lot of people within your particular industry have been laid off. You'll be fighting with all these people in your job hunt to try and get the fewer and fewer available jobs. If you lose your job and you're unable to pay your bills, well, that leads to all kind of bad stuff. You could end up defaulting, for example, on your mortgage, lose your home, end up living under a bridge. Extreme situation, but it happens to people. It happens, not cool. If you're lucky to keep your job, well, it could become a struggle to negotiate a pay increase. You may even be asked to take a pay cut. Do it for the good of the company. As an investor, your net worth on paper also takes a big hit. You've probably noticed it's already been pretty rough. Asset prices have fallen for stocks, metals, crypto, housing. It's all been pretty crazy. Banks also then make borrowing money even harder as they tighten up credit. And of course, you need a better credit score, larger down payments, all that stuff to be able to get a mortgage or a car loan or any of that kind of stuff. And those are just some practical realities of how a recession affects you personally. But how do you prepare for a recession? Well, first understand recessions are normal. Recessions come and then they go. so don't panic. But some simple steps to survive include, of course, getting your financial house in order. Be intentional with your spending. Cut spending on things you don't need. Do you really need 5 or 6 streaming services a month, for example? Top up your emergency fund, top up your savings. Have a plan for how to service any debt that you may have during this time. And at the same time, think of how to, well, basically maximize your income. Maybe you can ask for a pay increase or maybe even move jobs while the job market remains hot. Those opportunities are still out there. Maybe you want to start that business that you've always been dreaming about. Now's a great time, just do it. And of course, invest your money into income-paying assets, things like dividend stocks or property. And obviously, have cash ready to invest. And yes, I know cash is trash, Ray Dalio was right. But cash is the king of trash right now when the markets are down. Also remember to diversify your investments out, different asset classes, different industries, so you have a buffer for if any one of those do particularly bad, like crypto, for example. And finally, focus on what you can control. The market doesn't go up in a straight line forever, nor does it go down in a straight line forever. You will be tested in markets, so take control of your damn emotions and keep a calm head. Which leads me on to the final topic. How do you profit from a recession? Well, if we talk about crypto and stocks, accumulation. Accumulate. Let's talk about stocks first. During recessions, there's safety in investing in all the essential industry kind of stuff. Energy, healthcare, for example, those solid dividend stock companies become very, very popular. But also recessions are a time for choosing companies and assets that are creating huge demand, not out there fighting for customers, right? For example, Tesla. Tesla has a long wait list to get their cars. It's a pretty damn popular company. It will probably do very, very well in the future. And don't count out crypto and tech stocks. Yes, they fall harder. Yes, they fall faster as the market crashes. But they're also likely to rebound first and rise much faster than other assets, than the safe assets, right? These are the risky ones that provide outsized returns. Personally, I'm still buying Bitcoin, a few other cryptos during this bear market. I'm buying some stocks and all that kind of stuff. If we talk about property, well, a fall in property prices usually lags behind the other asset classes such as stocks, such as cryptocurrencies, and yeah, recessions usually mean an increase in foreclosures and repossessions of houses, so that means there's potentially some deals to be had out there in the market when that starts happening. So if you look around, you buy in the right areas, you'll likely see significant capital growth in the long term as the market starts to recover. So look, at the end of the day, the most important thing to understand about recessions are part of normal financial market cycles. They're not to be feared, but they should be prepared for. I suppose you should be fearing them if you haven't prepared for them. If you're ready, it's an opportunity. So what do you think? Is the USA in a recession, or do you believe the new way of calculating recessions? No, the USA is not in a recession. Let me know down below in the comments section. Thanks so much for watching today's video, and peace out till next time.